Welcome back, everybody, to Americans for Truth Live. I'm Pete LaBarbera, and we're happy to have Mike Heath back from Central America. Mike, you're back in the States.
Hey, Pete, it's great to be back where there's internet that works.
Yes, and we've got a huge show. We've got part 2 of our interview with the great Christian pro-fan activist Bill Watcott from Canada. Bill, are you there?
I am here. Thank you.
This guy is one of the biggest heroes in the world on this issue. Totally fearless, which is what we need more of. And we're going to be, we have a lot to do with Bill. But first, and we've also got Jeff Nell on the line. Jeff, are you there? Jeff's there.
He's muted.
Yeah. Our friend from Nevada. And before I get to Bill Watcott, I want to play something from Ellen Page, a CNN interview. It's a short little video from CNN when she was, this was after the Jussie Smollett so-called hate crime, which is turning out to be one of the biggest hate crime hoaxes ever. And she was fulminating against our Vice President, Mike Pence, because that's what a lot of gay activists do. Ellen Page is a lesbian actor. She is just look at her facial expressions, her tone, and go through the whole thing, Jared, because at the end, it's CNN actually contacted Mike Pence. She's trying to link Mike Pence to this fake hate crime against Jussie Smollett. Of course, at the time, they didn't know it was fake. Now, we know, we're learning more and more every day. This was the case where poor Jussie was walking from a Subway sandwich at 2 o'clock in the morning in frigid Chicago, where he was all of a sudden attacked by 2 guys. They threw a rope around his neck. They poured bleach on him. Somehow he held on to his Subway sandwich, which is becoming a big Twitter joke. He held on to that Subway sandwich and his phone as he was being attacked. Play the video from Ellen Page, gay activist, lesbian actor.
The Vice President of America wishes I didn't have the love with my wife. He wanted to ban that in Indiana. He believes in conversion therapy. Connect the dots. This is what happens. If you are in a position of power and you hate people and you want to cause suffering to them, you go through the trouble, you spend your career trying to cause suffering. What do you think is going to happen? I have traveled the world and I have met the most marginalized people you can meet. I am lucky to have this time and the privilege to say this. This needs to stop.
It shows Pence's record there. Now look at the ending here coming up. CNN has reached out to Vice President Pence's office for comment, but has not heard back. Okay, so look at the way she spoke. When you're out, when you hate people, so she's saying if you're against the homosexual agenda, you're by definition a hater, and you want to harm people. It's like every day when Mike Pence was governor of Indiana, he said, "How can I harm homosexuals?" That's, this is incredible. Then CNN reaches out for comment. Now, is CNN going to apologize to Pence? It's Ellen Page. I've called on Ellen Page on my Twitter feed to apologize to the vice president. They took this phony hate crime, which was patently absurd from the beginning, and anybody who knows the homosexual movement was immediately suspicious of this Jussie Smollett hoax. But she immediately linked it to the vice president and accusing him of hatred. And our vice president, Mike Pence, and I wasn't even a big supporter of Mike Pence in the primaries because I thought he was pretty weak in the way he handled succumbed to the pressure. But the way they are beating up on Pence is incredible. And Bill, I don't know if you're aware of that over in Canada, but they've really done a number on Pence and used him as a punching bag. I'm talking the LGBTQ movement and so-called progressives. And just, this is what they're doing to Christians. But because in Canada, you are you are the main Christian punching bag for everybody on the left in Canada, right? Especially the LGBT left.
Pete, before Bill jumps in here, the most effective and potent response to this kind of melodrama that we just saw on this CNN clip, there's only one man on the planet who's doing it as effectively as in a really potent and really effective way, and that's Bill Whatcott. So I am so glad that Bill is on the show to respond to this, because he gets it. He uses humor, he uses satire, he uses sarcasm, and he gets himself sued for $100 million by the Prime Minister of Canada. Is that potent or what?
Well, it's potent. Unfortunately, Bill really faces jail time, and Bill, you are. We talked yesterday. We only got into some of it. I'm wondering if you could first give me your reaction on Pence. I mean, they've been after him, but this is one of their tactics.
Yeah. Actually, if there's one person that does get quite a bit more media attention than me by Canadian media, they're more obsessed and more afraid of him. It is Donald Trump. And of course, part of that administration. Donald Trump probably gets more airtime in Canada than our own prime minister. So actually, kudos to them. I don't know about Pence. I've followed him a little bit. Some of the American politicians on the right, I do have concern are a little bit anemic. And early on, I supported Trump. I wasn't sure if his conversion was genuine or not. But the more and more I see of him, I think he is. And, he actually deals with the media quite well. And I have to admit, I've learned from him. I've borrowed a few ideas from him. He just calls the media what they are, fake news. And when I was in front of the British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal and CBC wanted an interview with me, I just politely told them they're fake news and I don't have time for them. And I learned that from Donald Trump. So actually, he's the man that really deserves the credit right now for dealing with the media the way they ought to. And unfortunately, Canada's conservatives, if you even want to call them that, they are still very, very differential to the media, and that's a losing proposition.
Yeah, and I said I think this is Trump's main contribution to the conservative movement is he has made the press. He has used the press to build conservative power, basically, Bill. But now one of the problems we're going to have in our short time with you is that you've got so much to describe here. Since you just mentioned it, briefly talk about the case where you sued, I think it's CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, because they tried to make you look like you really wanted to murder homosexuals, or describe that situation where you sued them and you actually won.
Yeah, that was a tragic case of fake news. Because keep in mind, they are a tax-funded state broadcaster, and they're supposed to have broadcasting standards. And they maliciously ran a headline behind my head during my interviews in 2011 before the Supreme Court with the words, "kill the homosexuals" behind my head. And there was no context to these words. And of course, I've never advocated that. They have no evidence that I've ever advocated that. They just simply ran that behind my head. I sued them, and the first judge was no fan of mine. And for a national broadcaster, probably the amount of damages you should be entitled to in Canada would be around the low 6 digits. There was a doctor probably had a more aggravated case than mine, and he did have more of a reputation financially. He got $900,000. I wouldn't get anything close to $900,000, but probably a fair judgment would have been $100,000. What he actually gave me was $30,000. But for being a Christian, you'll take that. Of course, we spent $50,000 to get it, but it was at least a meaningful amount of money.
Right.
CBC was not content with it, and they appealed. And the Court of Appeals admitted that I was defamed. They admitted that it was false running the headline, "Kill the homosexuals" behind my head. But then they had a couple interesting takes on my case. One was that my reputation isn't worth anything, and the other is that we didn't prove that anyone watches CBC, which I found that to be funny because this is a national coast-to-coast broadcaster. But here's like a leftist panel of judges saying they're not sure if anyone watches CBC. So that was funny because we always call CBC irrelevant. And then what they awarded me was $1,000. They dropped it from 1,000 to 1,000, which is just a token symbolic award of damages. And this was very malicious, and there is no case law to support it. They ordered me to pay all of CBC's court costs, which of course was tens of thousands of dollars more than the 1,000 they awarded me. So it was basically just nastiness.
Yeah, I mean, Americans, if they could just understand that as bad as it is in America and the political correctness run amok, it is 100 times worse in Canada, Bill. I mean,
the courts are lawless.
Yeah, and you are the one who has the guts to actually challenge it, and they've thrown everything at you. Now, I want to get to what has happened. Jared, if you could pull up the article we finally put up on our website, the Amy Contrada piece. It's a summary piece from American Thinker. We put it up on americansfortruth.com, .org, whatever you want to use. It's up there. It says free speech is dead in Canada, and it should be at the top of the site. It's got it's also got the gay zombies stunt that Bill did to pass out gospel tracts. Now, Bill, we left off yesterday where I think they were so upset at you that some homosexual activists were going to sue you civilly for $104 million. Take us from there and what happened. And then also, I want to get quickly also to your another case against you in one of these kangaroo courts called the Human Rights Tribunal. But first, let's get to everything that resulted from your penetration of the 26th Toronto Gay Pride Parade as the Gay Zombies Cannabis Consumers Association. You can look at the article right there at Americans for Truth. And by the way, folks, if you want to donate to Bill, on the caption to that photo is the link to his Go Get Funding page. It's right there. You can click and you can donate to Bill, help him out, because he needs all the support he can get because they're trying to put him out of business. So, Bill, what happened with that lawsuit, the $104 million?
Okay, well, the judge, his name was Perel, and he is no friend of Christians, I can tell you that. He found that the class action was, which it was. It's kind of amazing and almost historic that a class action litigator like Douglas Elliott would even try such a thing. So basically the judge threw it out, which we kind of went through that yesterday. And then in something that was unprecedented, he decided to help losing side out. Of course, when you're prosecuting a drug case in Canada, if you're the prosecution and you botch it, you're basically wearing it and the other guy is walking scot-free. In my case, the Perel advised the other side and gave them 30 days to refile as an individual defamation. This seems to be problematic to them because so far our side hasn't heard of any homosexuals that want to come forward as individual plaintiffs and talk about how my zombie flyer ruined their lives or ruined their good name. Certainly, I said some bad things about the Liberal Party, and they can come and prosecute me for defamation if they want. I certainly alleged in my flyer that their foreign affairs minister, who got promoted to Minister of Defense, Bill Graham, that he did indeed have a criminal relationship with an underage male prostitute. Of course, I got that information from gay media, so they're going to have to sue the gay media if they want to go there. And I did certainly talk about the homosexual activism and the corrupting of children in our schools by Premier Kathleen Wynne's sex education. Now, the Premier Kathleen Wynne and the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau were added as plaintiffs in the $104 million lawsuit. So I suppose one of them can come for defamation, but none of them have stepped forward yet. And I doubt they will, because this has been a year now. So basically the suit is foundering, but I'm still being ordered to, disclose my supporters. I think they want to sue each of my supporters for $104 million.
So they're trying to get the name of anybody who helped you out, right?
Anybody who helped me out. There is a Parliament Hill press gallery where Douglas Elliott on Parliament Hill was saying anyone who gave Bill a glass of water, anyone who gave him Aeroplan miles, anyone who gave him $50, anyone who gave him a bed to stay, they will be on the hook for $104 million. So consequently, most of my friends are pretty low budget people. They can't even afford to defend against this because it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to actually even defend yourself, never mind the potential penalty. And so I've just refused to disclose all the names. And the other side wants to get me in jail eventually for contempt of court. And that's how they're going to deal with that. Now, the $104 million lawsuit is foundering, but it's still there. Just as the Liberal Party was losing the election in Ontario, the Attorney General signed off on an indictable offense, which is sort of the equivalent to your aggravated felony, I believe, and put out a Canada-wide arrest warrant and charged me for willful promotion of hatred, which is an indictable offense in Canada.
Okay, can we back up on that? So hate speech, Canada passed, that was a number of years ago, right? I think it was what, C-250. Yeah. They passed a bill, hate speech based on now what? Sexual orientation and gender identity?
I think gender identity has just recently been added, but sexual orientation has been there for a number of years now.
So they charge you with a hate crime based on a hate speech crime based on your zombie stunt.
Yeah, and I looked at the flyer upside down and sideways. I do have a post-secondary grasp of English language, and I don't see how my flyer rises to a criminal offense. It's a mystery to me. But yeah, not only is it a criminal offense in Canada, most criminal offenses, like if you're caught breaking into someone's house, if you rob an old lady in a back alley, most criminal offenses, car theft, they only put out either a citywide or a province-wide warrant. And then they kind of wait for you to come back. And if you never come back, well, good riddance. They don't really travel across the country looking for you. That is typically murder or bank robbery when they put out those kind of resources. But those are the kind of resources they were looking for me in 3 provinces in order to extradite me back to Ontario to stand trial for this zombie stunt and giving these gospel messages to the sodomites who were marching in the parade.
Yeah, it was that important. Now, where does that case stand now?
Unfortunately, a number of Christian lawyers that I've talked to on it think I might lose, and they've read 319. They don't. That's the section I'm charged under, the Canadian Criminal Code, Section 319, and they don't believe I broke the law. It's just sadly, even Christian lawyers now don't have confidence in our justice system. It's gay activists. I don't have confidence. I should have been awarded cost for this $104 million lawsuit. It was a joke. It should have been laughed out of the courts, and I should have been awarded costs. Had I been an environmental activist, and had I crashed a banquet for an oil sands meeting disguised as an oil zombie and did everything else the same,
right?
This thing wouldn't even have been in court for a day. And if it was, the oil sands company would have been paying for it had they pursued it. But because
you are public enemy number 1 for the gay left, the whole homosexual movement, and so they throw the book at you. And are you going to face? Have you been told that you will likely face extended jail time if you're convicted?
Yeah, I applied for legal aid, and in the initial screening of legal aid, one of the things in order to get it is you have to be looking at jail time, and certainly legal aid. The Crown Attorney said they are seeking jail time. Initially, I think they were looking for about 6 months, but we elected to go direct indictment, which they. I think they're actually looking for more than that now, up to 2 years.
It's just incredible. I mean, Mike, as bad as we've got it in the United States, there's nothing like this where they have literally thrown out free speech for Christians. For this, anybody who opposes the homosexual.
Yeah, this is a very low bar of speech. This is a very low bar. If this is found to be worthy of of a lengthy jail term, then really I actually think you got a little more speech in the former East Bloc than you do here.
Yeah, and Bill, I think what you're doing is of critical importance, and I wonder if you could just speak to that for a minute from sort of an ideological perspective. Why is the kind of activism that you do with these very pointed, sort of sophisticated in a political and religious sense from the standpoint of rhetoric and imagery, why is this so important and so effective?
The main motivation I got into going into this was to challenge the censorship. And my concern was media censorship. Our media, even though you see different names, you see National Post, you see Globe and Mail, you see CBC, you see CTV, you see CFRB 1010 talk radio. You think you got a mix of media. It's actually all owned by a handful of people, and the censorship is homogenous. It's all left-wing, pro-gay, pro-homosexual, pro-abortion, and they're all typically hostile to the Christians. So, that's been a concern because often they cover up very newsworthy stories. They covered up Bill Graham and his abuse of that 15-year-old boy. They covered up babies being aborted and coming out alive at the Calgary Foothills Hospital. So I felt I had to provide an alternative media, and on a low budget, I've actually been somewhat successful in doing just that. The other concern I have, of course, is the censorship and bias in the courts and on university campuses. So, given that I don't have a lot of supporters, and given that I don't have a very big budget, I kind of asked God to help me with that. And of course, in all that I do, I try to share the gospel because I believe revival and salvation are the keys to turning this around. I don't think we have military might. I don't think we have political savvy. I don't think Christians are really strong enough to have a significant impact on the culture in and of ourselves. But of course, Jesus Christ said, "In like your weakness, my strength is made perfect." I think St. Paul said that, or he said, "In my weakness, Christ's strength is made perfect." And so even though I'm weak, I think because I did step out and do this, and as flawed as I am, and I don't even think I'm the most credible spokesman by any means for this movement, yet God has used me. And for that, I'm grateful.
Bill, and God has used you mightily. And it's amazing that somebody with hardly any money and just free speech, and you obviously don't hate homosexuals, as we talked about yesterday. You're a former nurse. You cared for homosexuals. If you truly hated homosexuals, you wouldn't want to give them the gospel because you would want them to go to hell. And so, Bill, let's turn, though. We've got 5 minutes left. I want to cover this other case of Ronen Oje, I guess you pronounce his name. This is another flyer you put out. Tell us about this case in which you're now before one of these infamous human rights tribunals in Canada. This is the BC, British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal. Quickly give us some background on this case in which you're also being prosecuted.
Yeah, this case, the fake news has inadvertently done a public service. At the time, I was living in the Surrey-Guildford riding. Surrey is just south of Vancouver. It's pretty much part of Vancouver. You don't really go into any countryside to get there. It's just cross a city street or cross a river, and you go from Vancouver to Surrey. I always do believe in voting. The problem in Vancouver is there's so few conservative candidates, and even fewer yet Christian candidates, that sometimes you only have evil 1, evil 2, and evil 3 to choose from. Now, I went to CBC because they are the public broadcaster, and in theory, they offer Canadians a service called Meet Your Candidates. And there I can read up on my candidate and decide which one I want to vote for. So when I went to CBC, because I never thought they would exclude candidates, they offered me the Green candidate, which is far left. They kind of want to turn Canada into Venezuela in the name of the environment and fighting climate change. And of course, they support gender identity and sodomy and abortion. The NDP is pretty much the Nancy Pelosi version of the Democrat. The Liberal candidate was probably marginally conservative, even though they have that name Liberal. In BC, they tend to be a little bit on the fiscal conservative side. But I called that guy because I wouldn't rule out voting for him. And he refused to return my calls when I asked him what his position on abortion and homosexuality was. So with nobody to vote for, I thought, I can't vote, but I still want to partake in the in the election. So I started investigating ridings around me, and I found Mr. Ronan Auger, and all the media was going gaga talking about the first transgender woman, so-called, and I should say for your listeners that his current legal name is Morgane Auger. I don't call him Morgane because that's a French woman's name. I call him his so-called dead name. That is what he calls it. I call it his birth name, his proper name, Ronan, a male name. That is what he is. But anyways, Mr. Auger, they were all calling him Morgane and a woman, and he was a courageous woman. And then I discovered that he was very involved in bringing the trans ideology into the primary schools. He sat on the school board. He was also sitting on committees to add gender identity to the Human Rights Code. And interestingly, I'm the first test case to be charged under that. And he's very, very militant. He's very public that parents should lose their kids if they won't support their so-called transitioning. He's very big supporter of hate speech laws, and he was just delighted that I got criminally charged, and he wants me in jail for disagreeing with the LGBT lifestyle. So he's basically a tyrant, and I think he would be a financial disaster. He's ripped off his wife in an Indian band of a substantial amount of money. So anyways, this is the guy running in downtown Vancouver. So I decided that because I have no one to vote for, I was going to do my civic duty by letting the people in his riding know that he is a man and that God doesn't want him to vote for him. And I put out a flyer to that extent that Mr. Auger is a man, and unless he repents and turns to Jesus Christ, you should let him and the NDP know you're not going to vote for him because you believe in God's definition of gender. With that, the guy had a meltdown. He was actually winning late in the race. He was winning slightly. I think polls were showing that. And then after I put out my flyer, which I only put out 1,500, and there's over 100,000 people in the riding, so nobody would have hardly heard of me if he would have just shut his mouth. But he started putting out press releases. He got the United Church and Anglican Church up here to put out press releases denouncing my flyer. Jagmeet Singh, the national leader of the NDP, sent out a Twitter denouncing my flyer. And thanks to all that noise, thousands of people read my flyer. Then he canceled his last 2 election rallies. And then he went to the police, and he went to Elections BC, and he went to the Human Rights Tribunal to get me thrown in jail. And doing all that, he lost by 400 votes. And I think he's a very bitter man.
Well, and what's amazing is, rather than just take it as a political defeat, you are being prosecuted effectively for your speech. And Bill, would that be a separate, if you lose, how does that work? Could potentially be another jail sentence?
Tribunal, and they do have legal powers. They can't throw you in jail right away. They got to get a court order, and they'll probably get a court order ordering me to pay him financial compensation. I think they're looking in the 100,000 range. They're adding aggravated damages to me because during the tribunal process, and this is where, they're supposed to be hearing the evidence and they're supposed to be arriving at the truth. Are you guilty or not guilty? Well, you can kind of see where their mindset is, because when I was to give my testimony, they ordered me to remove my T-shirt, which had Genesis 5:2 and God made them male and female. And then on the front, I had a statement: no matter how you use the state apparatus to prosecute me, you are still a guy. That apparently made the complainant feel uncomfortable, and the 3 judges ordered me to remove the shirt. I refused.
Now these judges are all pro-gay activists, right?
One of them, Devin Cossino, we actually uncovered that she's a member of the BC NDP. So this is the party that Mr. Auger is the vice president of. Oh yeah, this transvestite is the vice president of the ruling party. And we also uncovered $200 donations that Devin gave to transvestite activist groups. And even presenting her with this bias, she refused to recuse herself.
So
The other one,
this is a kangaroo court, and you, if convicted, I mean, our times are up. We're going to have to talk about this again tomorrow. But essentially, could this be more a separate jail sentence, or what is the worst that you're not going to be able to pay the fine? So what comes of this?
I think the maximum incarceration that they can get, yeah, it would be in a BC provincial jail, separate of the hate crime in Ontario. I think the maximum they could get you is 6 months. Typically, they get you 30 days. It isn't usually long jail sentences. And then they'll try to garnish you your bank account, put liens on your property, maybe take your car. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do that way.
Well, folks, our time is up. Mike, take us out. But I do want to drive people to give to Bill if they feel so led. It's on our webpage, AmericansForTruth.com. There's the article, and it has the link and the caption to the photo of Bill. Bill, we'll talk again tomorrow. But everybody, I want you to see what's happening here. This is a man, a brave Christian pro-family warrior who's actually being prosecuted for putting out political flyers and educating people on what the homosexual agenda and the transgender agenda is all about, being forced to call men, women, biological men, women, and all this. They're being prosecuted for speech in Canada. Can you imagine being thrown in jail for putting out a political flyer that's against the LGBT left? It's unbelievable, Mike, but this is happening.
Yeah, Pete and Bill, I want to thank you for the book you wrote, your autobiography, Born in a Graveyard. I read it a few years ago, and I so enjoyed it. You are a really, really fine writer, and I can't recommend highly enough to our viewers.
We've got it here, Mike.
If you enjoy reading biographies or autobiographies, this is one of the best that you'll probably ever read. It's very honest. It's interesting. It's provocative. It's colorful, and it's tightly written. I just enjoyed it, Bill. Thanks so much.
Born in a Graveyard. You can get that on it. Where do you get that, Bill? If they want to buy the book?
Unfortunately, hard copies no longer exist. I think there's only about 20 of them. I got them. I guess if somebody wants my phone number, 780-686-1797. I can send them a copy. I'm actually currently working on a book, so I'll ask you guys to pray for me on that, because of course, the 104 million lawsuit and hate crime trial, that wasn't there when this book was written, and a lot has happened in my life and ministry since then. So pray. I'm hoping to get the next book out in a year. And I talked to Brian Kamenker at Mass Resistance. They might try to get it published. So hopefully it'll be a gift for Americans. And you guys are some of my best friends.
And Bill, I read the Kindle. I think it was the Kindle version. It's still available through Amazon as a Kindle book. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it is. I haven't followed it lately, and I don't know what it's doing. But yeah, it could still be out there, I guess.
Yes,
Great.
it is. Yes, it is.
It is out there on Amazon. Born in a Graveyard. So thanks for tuning in to Americans for Truth Live. We're going to be back tomorrow with Bill Whatcott, again, a real hero in the pro-family movement at the global level, actually. And go to our website, AmericansForTruth.com. AmericansForTruth.com. There's a blue donate button on the right. We really do need your support. Nobody pays us to do this. Certainly the government doesn't send us grants, and there aren't a bunch of rich people lined up to support a provocative show like this that hits hard and tells the truth every day for 30 minutes at 1 o'clock Eastern time. 12 o'clock
Absolutely.
Central.
And Mike, thanks so much. We've gone over a little bit today, but folks, also when you go to AmericansForTruth.com, at the top there is an article on Bill. You've got his zombies group, and you've got a caption. On the caption is a link to his Go Get Funding page, which he does rely on, he and his family, to live. So if you are feeling led to support this brave soul, and I think we need to get Bill his message out across the world, because the gay activists reveal their tactics in the more totalitarian countries that are becoming like basically pro-homosexual, pro-transgender police states like Canada and England. Unfortunately, this shows where they want to go in the United States of America or in your country, whatever you're in. And so support Bill. Go to his Go Get Funding. You can just Google his name, Bill Watcott at Go Get Funding, and you can find it there as well. Support him. We'll be back again tomorrow with Bill Watcott. We're happy to have him. Bill, I also urge everybody who's watching this program, pray for Bill Watcott and his family. Pray for him that the Lord will protect him and use him mightily. And come back again tomorrow at Americans for Truth Live. We're defending God's truth. And remember, it is your duty as a believer, as a citizen, as a moral citizen, to defend the truth, because it is the Lord's truth, not ours. We'll see you tomorrow.